Today, we are not hating on Gemini placements. We are talking about why everyone should love Gemini placements. Hola, my beautiful lotus flowers. Welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is the community for you. Today we're talking all about the Gemini rising sign, and if you're not quite familiar with what a rising sign is and it's kind of new to you, I highly recommend watching this video I made all about the specifics of what a rising sign is before you watch this video, because it will make way more sense if you do. But for a brief summary, your rising sign is kind of how you express yourself in the physical world, how people may get their first impression of you when they first meet you, and just may reveal a lot about your purpose as well. Whereas your sun sign is more of your egotistical nature and your general personality, and your moon sign is more of your emotional, deeper nature that people see in your intimate relationships. We'll start the video by talking about some of the general traits of a Gemini rising sign. Then we'll go on to talk about some of the difficulties a Gemini rising may experience in their lives. And we'll finish off the video with strengths that a Gemini rising has. And as a little bonus section, we'll talk about a few celebrities that have Gemini rising and the way that they display the traits that we talked about. Now, for the general traits of somebody who has a Gemini rising sign. Before anything else, it's important to note that Gemini is the mutable air sign ruled by Mercury, symbolized by the twins. Mercury's influence on this rising sign creates an individual that tends to be naturally communicative and or very conversational. And if you're not quite sure, Mercury is the planet of communication, thought, and intellect. A lot of Gemini rising's existence in the world will deal with some need for open communication. Often this person is good at navigating social interactions and situations, even if the person considers themselves antisocial or introverted at heart. I think we get confused when it comes to Gemini placements and automatically labeling them as very social. But social doesn't necessarily just mean that this person is outgoing and extroverted. Of course it can mean that, but obviously this is going to channel itself so differently for everybody else, depending on where the planetary ruler of their rising sign is at, and also depending on other placements. But social in general doesn't just mean outgoing and talkative. This can mean that a lot of Gemini risings just know how to navigate social situations. They think very quickly and they react to things very quickly and are very intelligent about the way that they react to things. Often, like if somebody says something that catches them off guard, they're really good about putting together a really quick but good reaction to whatever was said to them. Whether maybe somebody said something that could be hurtful towards them, they'll be really quick with a funny remark. They'll just decide really quickly what they want to do or what they want to say based on whatever happened in their environment. This is a big way that they display their social expertise. Again, it's not necessarily that they just want to go around talking to everybody, but it can be just in the way that they navigate social situations in general. Not only that, but because of their Mercury influence, this really plays a big role in the way that they perceive everything going on around them. Very similar to a Virgo rising, they're going to notice a lot of the little things around them. They might be perfectionist, very particular, or they'll just notice a lot of things that maybe other people aren't paying very much attention to. And say it's something that's problematic, they'll be one of the first ones to notice it and probably think of a solution very quickly for it. Second, Gemini risings are often one of the most inquisitive, knowledgeable, and oftentimes talkative people you'll ever meet. Gemini is considered one of the most childlike, youthful air signs in the zodiac, so many times these traits show up very strongly in their childhood, probably asking infinite questions about everything, being highly observant of their surroundings out of curiosity, and having a general tendency to just ramble their thoughts. A lot of times the combination of Mercury's rulership and the fact that Gemini is the air sign, the way that this will show up a lot of times in Gemini rising's adulthood will probably be where they want to be a researcher of some sort, maybe a scientist, or they want to be able to teach people. They want to be in a position where they can communicate their thoughts or communicate what they know, like communicate their knowledge to a group of people or to individuals. Again, the rising sign really showcases a lot about where a person might go as far as their career path goes in their life. So they may choose to be a teacher or something along those lines, just something that's very knowledge communications based most of the time. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what somebody with a Gemini rising is going to do or is meant to do, but it can play an interesting role in the way that this person chooses their career path in their adult life. Third, oftentimes these individuals will be very experimental in their lives, from their style to who they date, etc. Gemini is a mutable sign, meaning the sign's adaptable and thrives on change most of the time. This channels into a Gemini rising the most with their outward appearance and the path they take in the world. For example, a lot of Gemini risings will probably want to change their hair color often, get tattoos, experiment with their makeup, experiment with different fashion styles, etc. because they just find it fun to change up how they look every day, and oftentimes this is the way they love to express who they are and what they're about to other people. This can also channel itself into more than just the way that they like to look on a daily basis. It can also channel itself into their career once again, because we're talking about the rising sign, or just the path they take in life. They might take a more abnormal, unorthodox path in life, wanting to have a career that allows them to change frequently or allows a lot of variety. They probably can't stand being in a position in their life where they feel caged in and stuck and like they have to do this one particular routine every day. Fourth, this rising sign is usually extremely open-minded, having the ability to comprehend almost every perspective. Gemini, being symbolized by the twins, is meant to represent their very dual nature. This is where the typical two-faced remarks stem from, but most of the time the actual way that Gemini placements showcase this symbol is through their ability to understand anyone and anything, no matter the perspective or the angle that's being thrown at them. Not only that, but in the case of Gemini risings, there's a lot more underneath the surface with them than people expect. When it comes to talking about Gemini placements in general, it's hard to pin down their general traits. I mean, that's hard to do for any sign because everybody's going to showcase their traits differently. But Gemini, it's the hardest because they are so multifaceted, they're so dual natured, they can really showcase the opposites of anything. Anything you can think of, they can probably fit into both or take a neutral position. So it can be hard to know where Gemini placements really stand with whatever it is that you're talking about. So in the case of Gemini risings, it can be hard to really know who they are. I mean, rising signs tend to give people a first impression of the person. It doesn't necessarily tell them who they are, but with Gemini rising, this is even more apparent because when you think about it, their symbol is the twins, like we said, which represents their dual nature. They're a mutable sign, which means that they're very adaptable, they like to change all the time, and they're an air sign, which also means that they're flowing, communicative, and changing a lot. And then they have a Mercury influence, which gives them a very fast-paced mental quickness and mental process that goes on all the time, as well as a fast communication process. So when you combine all of this quick-wittedness and this adaptability and this need for change and variety together, it screams somebody not knowing who they are. And there may be cases where Gemini risings have a hard time really knowing what they want because the Gemini rising placement can actually oppose, I guess is the right word, it can actually oppose their sun and moon a lot of times, or it may make them feel like they're just so different in the real world than what they are behind the scenes. They might react to things without thinking in the real world or not in a way that their sun and moon sign agrees with, and then be like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Like, I'm not like that. So it can be really hard for other people to have any clue as to who a Gemini rising really is, and it can be sometimes hard for the Gemini rising themselves to fully identify who they are. And again, this is that dual nature, but don't get me wrong, this isn't like a bad thing. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. And on top of that, it gives them a really great complexity. When we talk about Gemini placements, we lose ourselves a lot in the social, goofy, childlike aspect of this personality type. But if we dive deeper, there's a very deep intellectual complexity, 2 Gemini placements, Gemini Rising included. If you're enjoying this video so far, please, before we continue, be sure you're giving me a quick like. It only takes 1 second and it helps me so much to reach more people just like you. And hit the subscribe button and the bell. And be sure that you're commenting down below if you're a Gemini Rising, because I love to know Gemini Risings are watching. And if you're not, comment your rising sign below as well. Now let's talk about some of the difficulties that someone with a Gemini rising may face in their lives. Number 1, Gemini rising may lose a lot of great things in their life due to their need for constant change. This is something that goes for most of the mutable signs and the mutable rising signs included, because mutable signs just really love change. They adapt well to change and they really do love variety. And for every rising sign, it may be different in what area of their life they like variety, but for Gemini rising in particular, like I mentioned earlier, it may have a lot to do with their career and the path that they choose to go in their adult life. Although this can be an absolutely great thing, I think especially in the world we live in now, where routines are kind of being thrown out the window and a lot of people are trying to live a different lifestyle, they can thrive in this type of environment. So I'm not saying it's all bad or anything, but it is something that can get in their own way if they don't allow anything that they pursue to bloom. They, like most mutable signs, will have a shiny object syndrome at times, where they may be so excited for a job, but then they wanted this job forever, they get it, and then they're bored of it super fast, even though it could have been a great opportunity, and they move on. So it's important that they learn how to use their discernment when it comes to situations like this, because obviously you shouldn't stay somewhere that you're really unhappy, but you should also be able to tell whether you're truly unhappy or whether you're just bored because it got too serious, it got too committed, and you don't like that, so you decide to bounce to the next thing. Second, they may have a difficult time creating a stable life for themselves. Like I mentioned in the previous point, we are kind of starting to bridge out of a society that really values a lot of routine and kind of having a set lifestyle. And for Gemini risings, this can be difficult to find living a way of life that fits both who they are and who society kind of expects them to be or needs them to be. And whether we like it or not, our society does still run off of routines, 9-to-5s, things like that. And in order to have anything come to fruition in life, there does need to be some, even a light routine. Maybe it doesn't need to be extreme or anything, but definitely not living a sporadic lifestyle. It's important for a Gemini rising to recognize that living a sporadic lifestyle can get them nowhere quick, even though there's nothing wrong with wanting to live a more unorthodox lifestyle. But in general, they want to be able to be in a position where they feel that they have a lot of freedom to go wherever they want to go, do what they want to do, and they don't have to follow a boss's schedule or have any expectations or commitments placed upon them. They just love to have that independence in place in whatever they do. So this isn't a bad thing, but it is something to recognize when it is getting in their own way. Third, Gemini risings may find themselves living a more lonely existence due to their dual nature. Like I mentioned in the general traits, it can be really hard for a Gemini rising to know who they truly are or what they truly want when their sun and moon can tend to oppose the Gemini rising. And it can also be hard for other people to know who they are or understand who they are. Gemini risings will get themselves, maybe say they go into a social situation with new people, and a lot of Gemini risings are going to naturally, like I said, know how to socially navigate their environment. So they'll come off friendly and bubbly and maybe sometimes funny, optimistic, whatever it is. Gemini risings do give a lot of these very optimistic traits as their first impression. And so there's a lot of people who will probably think that they're really fun and easygoing, even though this may not be the way that their sun and moon signs are at all, which is more of who they truly are. So a lot of times Gemini risings will run into a situation where people like them and want to be friends with them or whatever. But once those people dive deeper into who they actually are, it may be the complete opposite than what they thought the Gemini rising was. So this can just be kind of detrimental to the Gemini rising, because there is a need and a desire present somewhat to be social or be in social environments or have that opportunity at least. And it can be something that turns into somewhat of a lonely existence for the Gemini rising, even though people probably think that they are like this amazingly social creature that has a lot of friends. Now for the strengths of somebody that has a Gemini rising sign. First, despite having a more youthful energy, this rising sign is able to have great composure when it comes to showcasing their emotions. Although too much repression of emotion is obviously a bad thing, when it comes to a Gemini rising, what I mean by this trait and why it's a strength is because they are able to really involve their intellect, and because they have a fast, efficient mental process and reaction time to things around them, they are often very good at remaining a bit more clear-headed. It's not to say that they don't repress what might have hurt them or bothered them or whatever, but they're not going to usually be the type who react impulsively and recklessly to whatever bothered them. Whereas, a fire or water rising might act a bit more this way. We aren't really going to see that as much with an air rising sign. And with Gemini in particular, like I said, they have a very great reaction time when it comes to how they vocalize what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and they're just not really going to let their emotions go without a filter. Everything is going to go through a very intellectual, logical filter before it comes out of their mouth, and it happens in a very fast amount of time. Second, they have a powerful ability to communicate in different ways. Although the way in which they communicate will vary due to other placements, most Gemini risings have this superpower for communication. And because we're dealing with the rising sign and the person's outward expression to the world, many of these individuals will become some type of writer, teacher, speaker, something that has to do with communicating their thoughts. Not only is this usually a natural ability, even if it isn't necessarily something that the Gemini rising would consider a natural ability of theirs, they still enjoy to talk. So say you're a Gemini rising watching this and you're like, ooh, I could never be a teacher or a speaker, no, that's not me. I don't know who you're talking about. I'm still talking about you, because a lot of times you have that desire present, but you may, not have the courage or the confidence or whatever it is to actually do something like that where you speak to a crowd or whatever it may be. But I bet you do enjoy, even with close friends or people in general, I bet you do enjoy having debates with people, being able to ramble about things you're passionate about. I know it. I know it's true. Third, because Gemini rising can be so attuned to many different perspectives in life and has an ability to understand many people, they actually have a strong ability to be powerful healers of some sort. This may come off as a surprise to some people who don't really know much about this placement or much about Gemini placements in general. But because there's such a strong communicative ability alongside their dual nature, their dual mental process, where they are able to literally understand and comprehend every single perspective offered to them. Every single perspective. When I say every perspective, I mean every single one. Seriously. So this can make them really great psychologists, therapists, anything within that alley that connects the mind, the person's mental health, to their actual health, to making themselves become better, or the study of that person's mental health. A lot of Gemini risings will have probably an interest in this because they'll be so amazing with this subject in particular. And especially now in today's age where we have the extreme expansion of social media, this is a perfect for a Gemini rising's playground, because it allows an outlet for the Gemini rising to communicate these things to people, communicate this knowledge that can help people when it comes to mental health or when it comes to spiritual health, whatever it is. And so a lot of times you will see Gemini risings take up a career like this, and it is because of their ability to understand so many people. Now it's time to talk about a few celebrities that display some of the Gemini rising personas that we talked about. First is Mindy Kaling. One thing that's immediately apparent about her is she tends to have a very bubbly, quirky, and youthful presence, showcasing this further in her career as a comedic entertainer. And speaking of being a comedic entertainer, she clearly also has the clever quick-wittedness of a Gemini rising through the way that she handled this situation. Quote, Cowling was in a sorority for a short time while she attended Dartmouth. She didn't really like it and eventually decided to leave to dedicate more time to improv. Unfortunately, the sisters didn't make it easy for her, and when she tried to leave via email, they demanded that she, quote, dump them, unquote, in person. When she thought that they weren't accepting her explanation, she used her improv skills to convince them that she truly was sorry that she couldn't stay in the sorority. Leave it to a Gemini rising to be in an uncomfortable position that they need to get out of, like that one, and be able to think of a clever way to get themselves out of it. That's that quick mental process that I was talking about earlier. And apparently, the Office production team also noted that she was by far the best writer on the team as well, also being the only female on the writing team at that time before they brought on more females later. And I just think it's absolutely incredible that a Gemini rising woman was considered the best writer on the team for an extremely successful comedy sitcom. Second, we have Lady Gaga. First off, it goes without saying that Lady Gaga has an extremely unique style, not afraid to change up her style and try new things. I mean, come on, like, let's not forget the meat dress. The meat dress. It's probably still the craziest thing I've seen somebody wear in Hollywood. But not too often you see her wearing the same look twice, whether it's her makeup, to her clothes. A lot of times, you know, when you see her, like whether it was a week ago or whatever, she'll probably have changed up her look in some way, it seems like. It's clear that she also has a very open mind towards life. Many Gemini risings are also very open sexually, willing to try different things or open to various types of relationships. And this again comes from their dual nature and their mutability as well. All of this makes them very open to, again, different ways of life. For Lady Gaga, she has openly expressed her interest in both men and women. Not only that, but she also took a risk on a more unorthodox career, like we mentioned earlier, as an entertainer by dropping out of NYU when she was 19 to pursue her career as a singer. Third, we have Willow Smith. It goes without saying that Willow also plays a lot with her appearance and style, having a very unique way of expressing herself. And just like Lady Gaga, she has also openly expressed her interest in both men and women, and even potentially dating them at the same time. On top of that, she strongly believes in using social media to spread your message and use your voice. In this quote I found, she says, quote, "And then there's people like me and Jaden," she divulged to Interview magazine, "who want to utilize social media to elevate the consciousness of those people who feel like all they want from social media is to be famous." Unquote. That's how Smith thinks everyone who's famous should be, as it can help make the world a better place. Quote, "Like you can actually be a voice," she continued. "You can actually say something that is inspiring and not just make people feel like you need to buy things and be a certain way." So once again, this takes on that more humanitarian mental health type approach that I said that Gemini risings will likely take on social media. They'll really want to use something like social media to expand their voice, expand their message and what they stand for. And they'll really be huge on the communication of that to a large group of people. If you enjoyed this video, be sure once again that you're leaving a comment down below if you're a Gemini rising watching this. I love to know. And if you're not Gemini rising, leave your rising sign once again. And please don't forget to hit the like button really quick. It takes 0.1 second and I can't even see that you liked it. It's completely anonymous. Hit the subscribe and the bell for future videos like this one as well. And you can hop over to the LaBlue Lotus Facebook community where we talk more about using astrology and spirituality for self-transformation. For even more content, you can go to my Instagram at Marisa LaBlue, where there's more of a personal touch to my journey, and watch these videos to learn more for your astrological journey as well. But until I see you in the next video, thank you so much again for being here. Adios.